Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars video. So this is going to be my review for the Acolyte Episode 2. I did my Episode 1 review earlier on today. So let's just get kind of straight into it with Episode 2. You know I liked the 2-episode premiere as I talked about in the first review. So specifically just as an individual episode, Episode 2, I thought it played its role quite well. It was a nice follow-up to the first episode. It has a pretty clear setup, to a certain degree, I suppose, for the next episode, though we're not really sure when exactly maybe the flashback episodes are going to happen. Is it full-on flashback episodes, or will certain episodes be a mix of present-day stuff and partial flashback? We don't really know. But there's a clear setup that, okay, this was maybe more the Torben kind of focused episode, introducing Keimer as well. Next episode maybe is the Kalnaka episode, based on how this one ends. So plays its role kind of quite well as we begin to set up more and more towards what that backstory is, especially a lot of the stuff surrounding Torben. It's super interesting and mysterious. Like, what happened? What did he do to where he would rather kill himself than just admit kind of what happened? That's a big, interesting setup in my mind. Keimer, I think, is a very, very intriguing character, as we'll get into, but I think we just need to go through this one kind of scene by scene. So, we open up with her initial attack on Torben, who's in this local Jedi temple on the planet Olega. And basically you find out that he's just meditating there, and that he's quite skilled because he has this basically impenetrable force bubble. He does not move. He doesn't seem to even acknowledge that she's in the room. She just attacks kind of thin air, but of course she's hitting his kind of force defensive barrier. And nothing she does can get through, knives, physical attacks. So she's just forced to have to escape because she can't kill him. So she just is going to let herself get caught if she sticks around. So failed attack. How is she going to do this when her attack on Indara was very focused on, well, the only way to kill this person is to attack them in some way, a trick and an attack or something like that. But in this case, she's not going to be able to obviously trick him. So how does she actually go about killing him? How does she solve this kind of puzzle, in a way, of this defensive Jedi here? Very, very interesting opening. Some other scenes kind of happen here where we get like quick scene with Osha and Jeki, kind of highlighting that, oh, the two of them actually get on quite well. It's just a quick moment, but you know, old Padawan, new Padawan for Soul, they do get on, so that's kind of nice. A thing that's kind of consistent with Yord in this episode is sort of the idea of him questioning things because some of what's happening on the mission is going a little bit off the books in a way. They're not doing things exactly by the Jedi rules. He wants to do them that way. And it's not that like he's, I think, excessively focused on the rules, but it's like a lot of the characters are appreciating a little bit more of creative thinking, and he maybe isn't offering that right now. But his caution is kind of, I think, required on the team, because Jeki is very much kind of following Soul, and Soul, because he is emotionally invested in what's going on here with Osha, is just kind of going along for the ride and isn't maybe thinking about like security as much. So the fact that there's a bit of a skeptical Yord there, I think, is a nice kind of thing to have there. And again, he's being presented with, I think, a nice amount of nuance where you don't hate him for being a little bit different than the other Jedi, but you're interested to see like, ooh, where does this go? Does he double down on this, or does he learn to grow, to be more creative, that sort of thing. He does say, you know, don't let your fear impact your judgment. And based on where the episode goes, especially with the next scene where Vernestra agrees with Soul, it seems like it is very much the idea of Yord is almost so focused on the idea of like, what if she is actually the villainous mastermind and something happens? Like, he's almost afraid that what if something were to happen? And so is reacting to that rather than what's actually happening, that sort of idea. But yeah, the idea is that yes, there's enough evidence to where the twin theory is reasonable at this point. Vernestra agrees with this, and she informs Saul about the attack on the temple from earlier on. This is connecting the kind of plot threads, obviously. This also basically absolves Osha of any wrongdoing because May has attacked while Osha was in Saul's custody, basically. That idea. And so, yeah, Osha is also going to join the team on this mission, and Yor doesn't like this because she's not being treated as a captive, and she's going to be allowed more freedom on the mission here. Highlighting that he's being a little bit of a kind of stick in the mud over this situation, but, you know, it's fine. Then we get the introduction of Keimer. So, very interesting character, because you immediately get the idea of, okay, we saw May interact with the Sith Lord, with the Master. So she knows about that, she's involved in that. But she brings that up in front of this guy. So he's involved in this somehow, where he's met the Sith Lord, or at the least is loyal to the Sith Lord as well, and is assisting with this stuff. It's unclear if he is a potential acolyte in training, or if, like he says, he is sort of just a loyal supplier to their cause, and so he's there to assist the Sith Lord and potential acolytes like May. The other point, and I think a lot of people have had this theory for a while now, a lot of people are suspecting Keimer is the Sith Lord, just acting like he is just this kind of dealer kind of guy to go undercover by being basically right out in the open. A little bit of a Palpatine style thing, but in a lesser position. So that could be a quite clever way to do it, because the acting performance is good enough. And by that I mean the actor performing Keimer, but also Keimer performing his role within the story. That he acts as both potentially the most knowledgeable person in the room based on some of the stuff that he seems to know. He seems to know everything. But then he acts like he doesn't know everything at key moments as well. Like, I don't know what's going on here. I was just helping her with this one thing. That's all I know. I don't know any of this other stuff. But then it's like, oh yeah, the Master, I know him. And I know how to make this poison from this specific planet. I know where your next Jedi target is. All of that stuff makes me go, this is an intriguing character to follow. Is he just a red herring and he's just like really well characterized? Or is this actually the reveal of who the Sith is? Because if that is the case, then May is effectively interacting with the Master without realizing it, and is doing all this stuff like, hey, don't tell him I made this poison, but she's effectively telling the Master. She gets the poison from the Master in that case, which is a kind of fun little detail here. So yeah, he's taken over the apothecary store. That's his kind of cover here. We get into the whole idea of like, okay, Torben has no weakness, but Keimer says, no, everyone has a weakness. She needs a weapon to kill him and wants Keimer to make her a poison. She does proclaim at this point, one of the two remaining Jedi I will kill without a weapon to please the Master. This is like her quest that she needs to do. One of these four she has to take out without a weapon. But in this case, she feels that this is a puzzle that needs the poison as a weapon to solve. So, then Keimer gets into some kind of philosophy type stuff. He says the Jedi justify their dominance in the name of peace, but peace is a lie. And obviously, if you are familiar with this is the first line of the code of the Sith code starts with peace is a lie. So highlighting that connection here as well. Keimer says Torben is not as serene as he comes across. He needs something only May can give him. Absolution. He prepares the poison, hands it over, and then she's like, hey, don't tell the Master that I have this, basically. So again, another thing that Keimer knows, and that like, okay, May has told her history, I guess, and what happened in the past to Keimer, or is he going to be revealed to have been there as well? We don't really know what the situation is, because this is something that he has to kind of basically remind her of like, wait, you want to go after him for revenge. why don't you bring up why you want revenge in front of him, and that might force something out of him. That there's a reason he's meditating for 10 years, basically. Use that against him. And it's quite clever. Saul and Osha talk here, and there's an interesting bit here where they're like we both believe May killed Indara, but we also are both pretty sure we saw May die. Now, they haven't shown this yet. Like, what did they see that made them so convinced she died, but somehow she has actually survived? What's going on here? That's going to be a big reveal when it happens. Is there some, like, illusion type stuff going on here? Was she actually injured but then healed by, like, the Force or something like that? We don't know what's happened in the past yet. Another mystery to add to all of the mysteries about this flashback on Rendok. So yeah, this is basically just the idea of giving you, I suppose, a hint about potentially why she left the Jedi Order, is that she ultimately hasn't been able to deal with her emotions surrounding what happened the night she was basically, saved here, but the night her family died as well. That Saul tried with everything he could to make her learn this lesson. He has been able to accept what happened that night, but she hasn't, in a way. And she feels she wasn't a good student, and he feels he wasn't a good enough teacher. And it kind of, to me, highlights that when something like this happens, obviously, it's never going to be like the most kind of joyful thing of just like, we left and it was perfectly happy the way Master and Apprentice kind of fell apart to a certain degree. But it does, to me, come across like this was not this, like, devastating thing when it happened. There's probably sadness associated with it, but maybe a sense where like they just both agreed that if you can't deal with this, then it maybe is the best that you kind of leave the Order type thing. So that's another thing we still need to know the details on. So then we get to the discussion with Torben. She infiltrates once again, and this time we get the mention of the Barash vow. Like, I know why you took this vow. So from context, I think they make it relatively clear what it is, but just to be clear, it is this vow that you take it as penitence, so as a basically self-punishment, where you choose to focus only on the Force. So for a Jedi, you specifically avoid doing anything else as a Jedi except focusing, kind of exploring the Force. And so no missions or anything like that. And we even get that with him, it's as far as he hasn't spoken to anyone in 10 years. And that it's meant to be this thing to make you achieve peace. And obviously the idea is he wants peace because he's trying to get away from his past. And has it actually worked, or is it in a way 10 years wasted? And we kind of see that, no, he is very much still haunted by whatever happened in the past. And that gets kind of brought up here. So she gives him the choice that basically you can confess what you did directly to the Jedi Council, or receive forgiveness from me by drinking this poison and basically killing yourself in front of me. And he opens his eyes up at this and is like, I've been waiting for you. And then pretty much immediately is like, forgive me. We thought we were doing the right thing, whatever that means. Then drinks the poison, and that's it. She has killed him. She's used a weapon in the poison, but it's different than the Indara one, where in this case, she's kind of manipulated him into this position. So it's kind of getting, I suppose, towards that ideal that the Master wants for her to be able to defeat the Jedi without any weapon. So I'm really intrigued to see how she goes about it with like Kel Naka, who obviously it seems like on the outside attempting to combat a Wookiee Jedi is a terrible thing. So, and then specifically how's she going to combat Soul? How's that all going to go down? In terms of her learning and trying to achieve this goal. Very, very interesting overall. So yeah, that is 2 Jedi down, 2 to go. We basically get the idea that Osha, led by one of her visions, finds his body first. She recognizes the poison, of course, but then ends up in a situation where it looks like she might have done this. But really quickly we have Yord arriving, revealing that, oh, my cautiousness is going to save the day here. I've been following you, and I know you only arrived here, and he was on the ground when you arrived in. I can confirm that and get you out of this. Great. But obviously they all realize he must have taken the poison willingly because there's no sign of a struggle. She explains that the poison is Bunta, which is from Brendok. It was used on her home planet. And so again, it's this idea of it's all about the event from 16 years ago. What happened? And then it's quite logical here what they do. They realize that, okay, the poison because of the way this poison works, it's only effective if used shortly after it's made. So it had to come from nearby. And, oh, look at that. There's a new apothecary in town who no one knows. Who do we talk to? Obviously him. So Keimer is brought into play here once again. There's an interesting dynamic here between Yord and Jecki when it comes to come up with a plan. Yord kind of does the standard by the books plan. It's just like, hey, everyone else do look out. I'll go in and confront him. Okay. That's one way to do things. But Jecki's like, why don't we just have her go in and talk to him? Because she looks identical to the person he's working with. So if she just acts like her sister, we can get some basic information just that way. We'll just record the conversation, basically. Let's do it that way. And everyone's like, actually, that's a really good plan. We'll go with that. And Yord's kind of like, okay. But obviously, he was never going to necessarily recommend a plan that involved their prisoner in his mind. Even though he's helped her, he still is a little bit uncomfortable with like using her as part of a Jedi plan necessarily. And as well, he disagrees with the idea that she's given the stun gun as well. So yeah, then we get into the other Keimer scene where this time he talks to the other sister. And now, at least to me, it feels clear that he knows it's not May the whole time. Even though he kind of maybe acts coming out of the conversation as if he only figured out midway through, it makes it come across super interestingly, because why would he give away some of this information if he knew kind of what was going on here? Like, to me, he catches on quite early on after the first few awkward hellos, because he's the one to kind of pick up the conversation and be like, oh, hey, the poison worked. As in, like, admitting to it in front of her. And then he's the one who goes up and is just like, oh, he will be so pleased that you managed to kill Torben without using the poison. He just says all of this, like, you know, offers it up, basically. So this is when Sol wants Osha out. The second he gets this extra little bit of information about who is May's master. This is the intrigue beginning to come out here, of course. So she's like, oh, I did use the poison. And this is when he goes up to her and kind of it gets a bit real. And it's like, is this the real Keimer here at this point? And it's just like, you look so much like her. So he's known the whole time it's her, which is quite interesting. But then, yeah, May pulls the gun on him. The other Jedi come in. And immediately he kind of changes a little bit. He goes from being the quite like intense, calculating, I know everything, to, oh, look at me, I'm just a kind of supplier guy. I only know a little bit of information. And he's very evasive with some of their questions, but then offers up certain specific information. So kind of avoids the question about the master by instead saying, all I know is that she wants revenge on 4 Jedi. So they focus on that. And then he actually gives her up, which is quite interesting. If he is the Sith Lord, this is sort of, is he testing his apprentice here? Get out of this situation. Prove yourself to me. Or what? Or is he just trying to save his own skin here? That's what makes the character so interesting. Then we start to get into some of the emotions surrounding Osha. So Sol wants to face May by himself, but Osha also wants to confront her. But Sol sees in her heart, in her eyes, there's anger there. She says she wants justice, but Sol can see that it's actually revenge, that it's leaning a little bit dark side overall. And Sol is like, believe in me, I will try to save her now because I wasn't able to save her in the past. But Osha does highlight that, hey, the 4 Jedi, you are on that list. Indara, dead already. Torben just died. Kel Naka, the Wookiee Jedi, and Sol, they're the 4 Jedi who were on the planet when this incident went down. This is why it's these 4 Jedi that May wants revenge against. So we need to see how exactly this all comes about. But yeah, then we get to the actual plan here for the confrontation, and it's pretty standard here. It's just Yord's going to be on lookout, Jackie's going to be in the ship ready to go, and Sol directly confronts May. We get another great martial arts, no lightsaber fight scene here. Really good, well choreographed. And because we now understand the situation here, I think it makes sense. The Jedi don't want to typically go straight to killing people and stuff like that, so they focus on the martial arts, especially when she's not obviously using a dangerous weapon herself necessarily. But, you know, she tries to grab his lightsaber, but he actually kind of reverses things and disarms all of her, takes all her weapons from her, and actually ends the fight in, I think a really cool way for a Jedi, where it's like, he kind of like judo throws her onto the ground, and before she hits the ground, he's just like, force. So he just kind of traps her in mid-air. Whereas like if she hit the ground, she might have been able to get back up and do something, but because she's just like stuck in mid-air, she can't really defend against it. And so he uses this position to kind of probe into her mind to find out about her master. And so this is where we get the reveal that, oh, he's hidden his identity, to the point where it seems like he's either done something to her or has just kept anything of note out of her head. And May could not tell Sol who her master is, even if she wanted to. Not that she maybe does know, actually, who it is under the mask of the Sith Lord, obviously. So that's an interesting reveal to get, obviously. But one thing he did find in there was that she does still think about her sister. And then this gets quite interesting here as well, because May is like, my sister's dead. And this is where you get a bit of a shock from like the previous episode, and it's like, oh wait, so Osha getting the vision in the previous episode was not this thing that May made happen. Like, she's connecting to her sister, bragging about, oh, I killed Indara. No, that just kind of happened. That was just a vision that potentially Osha initiated without maybe even knowing, or someone else initiated. But it doesn't seem like May was the one who made that happen. Osha is the one having these visions, not May. So what exactly is going on there? So he revealed, your sister's alive. Yord confirms it. And you can tell that there's anger here about this, but there's also like, you know, don't lie to me about something so important, as in, I would be happy to know that my sister is alive. And we definitely get that in like the following scene, where like seeing Osha again, she's like, oh, whoa, you are alive. Like, that's good. And she gives her the nickname, you know, like Oshi, she mentions it. So that's super, super interesting. Obviously, she goes to escape. This leads to the confrontation right before she escapes, where the two of them see each other. And it's such a contrast here, because, of course, it's the villain sister actually happy to see her sister, and then it's the good sister angry, about to shoot at her sister. And they're both seeing each other for the first time in all this time. And I like the contrast like a lot with what's going on here. Where like one is clearly out for revenge, but almost you would say maybe isn't as emotional about the situation. Whereas the character who comes across as being in maybe a better situation is actually the one more kind of broken up emotionally about what happened. So it's very intriguing what's going to happen here. Because obviously she fires here, but misses. And it's like, did you miss on purpose? She can't use the Force, as we saw. So it's not like a Force-enhanced aim or anything like that. So I'm guessing the emotion of the situation just kind of got to her, and she did honestly miss the shot, but the intent was there. So yeah, May gets away, but Sol does see Osha's emotional response. And so I'm guessing this is going to maybe really set the stage for some sort of a thing where we get the reveal on why did she leave the Order specifically. Was it, as we suspect, just because of this and it all relates to what we've just discussed here? Or is there something more specific that has happened as well? Next up, we have Vernestra basically just being like, hey, things have changed. We need you back here. We need to discuss this in person to decide what to do next. It would be different if it was as simple as just like your former Padawan is behind this. But now we know it is an outsider who is trained by someone mysterious. We need to discuss this. He wants, of course, to just straight away be agile and be able to just go straight on to the next thing. But she's quite strict here. Come back. We will see you soon. So I'm guessing he does return. I don't think he'll just go rogue here or anything like that. So I'm guessing we will return and discuss what the kind of plan is coming up next. And this is probably why we'll have a different team that includes a few more Jedi for the upcoming episodes. And we get the big scene with a bunch of Jedi igniting their lightsabers that we see in the trailer. Quick scene to resolve things on this side of the episode is that May kind of takes Keimer by surprise. But interestingly, again, he like reverses it, and there's this weird kind of struggle where like it to me comes across as like he's in control, but if he is just the supply guy, why is he able to take advantage of the like skilled assassin character? So there's clearly the obvious suggestion here of just like he's talented enough to maybe be an acolyte himself, or maybe he is the Sith Lord, you know, that sort of whole idea. And she's like, hey, you sold me out. But he quickly, again, is quite clever here. Just is like, hey, I can get us both out of here. We're going to Kofar. Why? Because this is where Kalnaka, your next target, is. It's where the Wookiee Jedi lives. We've found him. So there's obviously a sense for like Kalnaka. Okay, I guess is it hard to track down a Jedi? But then we find out immediately in the next scene that like, well, I guess he might have left the Order in some sort of a weird way too. Because Kalnaka's just living on Kofar, doesn't seem like he's acting necessarily like as a Jedi anymore. So what's going on there? Of the 4 Jedi from this mission, 2 of them are still were still active Jedi, and then 2 of them effectively wasn't a Jedi anymore because of the vow, and then Kalnaka seems to have gone into some sort of an exile of his own to a certain degree. So this is obviously just more of a setup for like, Wookiee Jedi, what's going on with him here? So again, we need the flashback. And that's the question here is like, do you inform the audience now to get them up to speed with what actually happened here so we can progress in the present day? Or do you leave the backstory until much later on to connect everything together at the end? Not sure which is the best way to do it, but will be interesting to see what happens. So yeah, I think another pretty strong episode. Like I think the 2 episodes together, it was a good idea to I think start with 2 to get us into things properly. But I like the emotion, the acting on the 2 main characters, the twins, obviously. Really interesting with both of them, what's going on. One, because of the Sith connection, obviously, but even like the question of just like, why did you leave the Order? And because you both have the same origin, what happened in the past to kind of split the 2 of them up to where they both think each other died that day? That's super interesting. What did Torben do? What did Kalnaka do? Like, what did all of the 4 Jedi who were there do that has prompted the want for revenge, basically? That's the real question in this. Keimer, super interesting, continues to be. So, very intrigued to see where we go from here. Liking a lot of what we're seeing here. And like I said in the first review, there's no obvious, like, big notable criticism that I would have really about kind of any of this. Other than just like it's a mystery show and we're waiting for the reveals to drop. And obviously a lot on a show like this is going to depend on the quality of those kind of mystery reveals. Like how much do you actually have to show us by the end? That's going to be a big thing. But the setup so far is great, in my opinion. So hugely excited for episode 3 next week. And yeah, just 1 episode a week from here on out, so it'll be a little bit easier to review. But yeah, I will be doing weekly reviews for the show. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.